Hello and welcome to the 9th video on our series on the real business cycle model. In this video, we're gonna construct the aggregate demand for the model. As was said, that's the objective. Critically, what we want is to derive a way of knowing how much output demand is at each interest rate R. The method we're gonna follow comes from national accounts. We know from the national accounts, as you covered in a previous class, that total demand in the economy is equal to total consumption plus total investment plus total government spending. As we'll see in a later module, when we open the economy, we're also going to have net exports. But for now, in a closed economy, we only have these three components of demand. Now, G is taken as given. It is exogenous to the model. And we know that investment depends on the interest rate that we covered when we did our video on the firm optimal policy. The problem here, though, is consumption, because consumption depends on the interest rate, but it also depends on total income. So we need a way of relating consumption to total income, but then generating total demand. Now, the way to do that comes again from national accounts, because we know that in equilibrium, total demand and total income are both equal, and both equal to Y. And while this can seem confusing, it is actually extremely useful, because we can solve for the level of income that implies the right level of demand. Really, what we're looking for is the solution of a system in which you demand exactly enough to be internally consistent with the national accounts and getting the right total income. We're going to see how this works graphically. So we start from where we left the problem of demand in our consumption problem. The optimal consumption of the consumer, it's going to depend on the interest rate and on total income. And we said that the more income you have because of the wealth effect, you're going to want to consume more. That how much you consume out of an additional dollar is measured by the MPC, and that the curve of how much you want to consume depends on the interest rate. That if you had higher interest rates, then you wanted to consume less and save more. Well, now let's relate these to aggregate demand. Now this looks very similar to the problem we had before, but it is slightly different. Let's see what the differences are. First, this blue line is no longer just consumption. Now it is consumption plus investment demand plus government spending. So this is the hypothetical aggregate demand if you had this level of income, this level of income, this level of income. So this is giving you what aggregate demand will be for different levels of income. Now we know though that in equilibrium, aggregate demand and income have to be equal. That is the 45-degree line. In the 45-degree line, current income and aggregate demand for goods are the same. Y is equal to Y. So what we're looking for is the point in which these two lines intersect, the point at which output is the same as the income you have. You get the same demand and the same income being consistent with the decisions of the consumers, the decisions of the firms, and the exogenous level of government spending. Now, what we can do is change the interest rate. When we increase the interest rate, we know that we shift this line down, and we shift it down because of two effects. For every level of income, you have less consumption, and then you also have less investment. Okay, because of those two things, this line went down, and so now the new equilibrium level is Y2. What we're doing here in the right panel is we're tracing this line. As you increase the interest rate, you reduce the amount of total demand, and so that gives us a downward sloping aggregate demand curve. We can also use this same diagram to think about the effects of exogenous variables. A simple example can be drawn from just changing the exogenous level of government spending. If you increase government spending, what you're going to get, holding everything else constant, it's higher demand. Just you're shifting these by a constant amount, the difference between G1 and G2. Because this happens for any interest rate. What you're gonna get here is just a higher output for any interest rate. So at interest rate R1, you go from output Y1 to output Y2. At any interest rate, you move horizontally outwards, and so you're expanding aggregate demand. You can repeat this same type of analysis for other changes, such as a change in total productivity. That's what we're going to do in the next and final video. Thanks.